Akane Nishino is a popular actress in high school. Everyone there adored her, but one guy, Kajino, did not show any attention to her and she did not like it. He also bullied Akane with her last name. It was a normal school day, but in the evening everything changed. She could not get through to her driver and went on foot in the dark. In the yard, bandits were waiting for her, who kidnapped her for comfort. They asked Akane's relatives for money for her freedom. The bandits had already begun to mock her, as steps were heard on the roof. A guy in a mask flies in through a window in the ceiling. He, using only 2 crowbars, knocks the gun out of the hands of one bandit and beats them both to death. It was Kajino. He killed a gang of bikers every night. He was bigger than he looked. Akane didn't realize it was him. The next day, she smiled at everyone as usual. In the same place with Kajino, they no longer fought so much, and Akane even noticed his similarity with him because they both wear a mask and pretend to be someone. Kajino contemplates that he needs to become something more than just a good fighter. He wants to become the Lord of Shadows. It was announced on television that Kajino had an accident and died in his last year of study. He himself wakes up in the body of a baby. He was born into a magical family and the son of Baron Kajino. Already at an early age, he exterminated gangs without even blinking, using many magic tricks. In one of these raids, when all the bandits were killed, he found a strange creature in a cage for slaves. It turned out to be a bewitched person with an overload of magical energy. For the next month, Sid tried to free him from the curse. Only a month later, he was able to contain the magic in the creature, and it turned out to be a fair-haired girl, Alpha. Kajino gives a beautiful speech about his path and calls the girl with him. They call their union the Garden of Shadows. He also had an older sister, Claire, with whom he constantly trained. One important evening, she was kidnapped by a cult of the devil. Bia, a girl who also entered into an alliance, helped Sid find his sister. There were already 7 fighters in the Garden of Shadows. The kidnapped Claire was handcuffed to the wall, but this only helped to contain magical power, not physical. She breaks out, but she is beaten, and she again lies exhausted. The Garden of Shadows find the cult's lair and attack them. Everyone was killed in 2 counts, only the leader of Orba remained. At first he fought with Alpha, but unable to withstand the onslaught, he runs away to his lair where Sid is already waiting for him. Orba eats his pills and transforms into a powerful fighter with swords instead of arms. But Sid has great potential in battle and wins. The next day, Claire was already completely healthy, but in a bad mood. The Shadow Garden girls grew up and decided to leave Sid. He does not blame them, but rather understands. Sid was 15 years old and he went to the capital to enter the school. There he was mistaken for a minor hero due to the fact that they considered his abilities not strong. He became friends with 2 more of the same background characters. They had an argument in which whoever wrote the tests the worst would go confess to Princess Alexia. Sid was the loser. Crowds of students came to her with confessions, but Alexia was not interested in any one of them. Sid decided to pretend to be shy, and surprisingly it worked. She agreed to a relationship with him. Alexia immediately helped him up from the last fencing group to the first. Everyone around the school was surprised or cursed Sid, because he is the most ordinary guy. Alexia needed a boyfriend to turn down the teacher, and Alexia had already found out that Sid just lost a bet from his friends. In the end, he just gives in to her money. Sid was just playing an obedient robot for her. In public, Alexia behaved stately, but in private, they communicated calmly. The teacher did not like Alexia, although he was perfect in everything. She also talks about her sister, with whom she learned to fence. Sid says he likes her swordsmanship, but she points her sword at him and leaves. The next morning, the teacher meets him and says that the princess didn't come home yesterday. Sid sees that everyone is holding onto his sword and agrees to be interrogated. Alexia has been kidnapped by some crazy doctor who talks about resurrecting a demon with her blood. In the same dungeon sat a hunched monster. Sid is beaten and tried to be interrogated, but he does not care about physical torture. He pretends to be in pain so that they will leave as soon as possible. The head of the Knightly Order and sister of Alexia, Iris, continues her search and tells the teacher to keep the students in order. As a result, Sid is released and he goes to his hostel. There he is met by Alpha and takes care of him. At this time, Alexia was already in the worst condition. She was all punctured and lay without strength. Betty came to Sid next. She said that there are already 114 fighters in their union. Their plan was to comb the entire kingdom for traces of Alexia's magic. At night, those who interrogated him came to him. They were about to seize him, but Sid no longer spared them, and they were brutally killed. The time came, and the doctor injected Alexia's blood into that monster sitting in the corner. He instantly turned into a giant and killed the doctor because he splashed out his anger on him. The monster also freed Alexia and escaped by breaking through the wall. The princess was about to run away, but that teacher turned out to be a traitor from a devilish cult and entered into battle with her. He knocked out her sword and threw her back. Footsteps were heard behind him. It was Sid in his shadow form. The monster or the devil is already destroying the city and killing its inhabitants. Princess Iris engages him in battle, but the monster has very strong regeneration. She throws a lot of punches, but Alpha stops her. This monster was the daughter of Orb, a leader of the cult. Alpha understands that this is not happening on her initiative, and soaring into the air, she decapitates the monster and stops her suffering. Sid is much faster and stronger than Zenon's teacher. Almost losing, he takes the devil pills and turns into a powerful fighter, like Orba at that time, but even in this guise, he cannot defeat him. Sid mentions that he himself became like a nuclear bomb in order to stop being mortal, and at one moment creates an explosion that leaves a kilometer-long crater. Alexia herself was unharmed, and Iris came for her. The next day, Alexia talks to Sid. She invites him to meet further if he wants, but when he hears a refusal, she only smiles. Soon it turned out that imposters appeared, calling themselves the Garden of Shadows. In the crater, in the ruins of the cult, an amulet was found. That was exactly what the imposters wanted to get. Iris entrusted this case to a girl named Sherry Barnett. At school, friends asked Sid about relationships and invited him to go to an outlandish store. There in line, a girl approached him with a survey and held it on the roof. There, at the entrance to the next door, he saw the girls bow before him. It turned out to be Gamma, also familiar to Sid. She was the smartest of the Shadow Garden agents. This was her mall. She made millions from it. Gamma told him about these assassins under the masks of the Garden of Shadows. Sid promised to do it himself, but Gamma sent an assistant, Nu, to pick him up anyway. In the yards, imposters attacked Alexia and surrounded her. Sid arrived in time to scare them off, and Nu blew possible information out of them. Gamma gave him a box of chocolates. Sid's friends tried to hit on the girls with this chocolate, but their ability to do so was minimal. In the end, Sid just gave this box to the first person he met, and it turned out to be Sherry. At home, her father thinks it's love at first sight, and Sid is waiting for an answer. Nu obtained a school uniform and told Sid that the imposters had obtained Shadow Garden equipment from the black markets. Friends forced Sid to go to a fencing tournament. There he was given a fight against the president of the council, Rosa Oriana. In all rounds, he pretends to be the loser. Rose realizes that he is faking because each of her attacks was charged with magic. He is carried away by force because they believe that he can no longer stand it. After the fight, he is met by Sherry. She gives him a cookie as a thank you. Sitting nearby was her father, Rosalind Barnett. He asks to take care of his daughter and talks about her research. After that, Sherry ran to Alexia because she wants to know if she is now in a relationship with Sid. Upon learning the truth, Sherry happily ran out of the office, and the princess was furious at this. The next day, Sid noticed that the attitude towards him had changed for the better. But at that moment, he felt a red wave that stripped everyone of their magic. Bandits burst into the classroom, calling themselves the Garden of Shadows. The council president wanted to protest, but without magic, her sword immediately broke off. Sid covered Rose and took the blow. Rose muses that he didn't purposely beat her in the tournament and saved her now. But in fact, he did it for the sake of dying as a background character. When everyone was taken away, he woke up and bandaged the wound. Rex, one of the leaders of the imposters, came to Sherry for an artifact from the cult. He breaks through the window, but she is rescued by Glenn and Margot, her protectors. Sherry runs away while they fight Rex. While she gets to her father's laboratory, Sid fights off her enemies. Together, in the book, they found information about an artifact that absorbs all energy. They understand that the artifact is somewhere in the assembly hall because it needs a lot of energy sources, and there they gather all the students. Nu arrives at Sid's and sees that Glenn and Marco have been killed. She reports that their squad is waiting for instructions, but Sid asks for help only in choosing materials for the artifact. Together with Sherry, they created a structure for an artifact with which they can control another artifact from a distance. She makes her way to the roof above the assembly hall and sees the leader in a knight's costume. Sherry sees him pulling an artifact from his cloak and dropping his. At this point, the field covering the school dissipates and magic is available again. Sid and his fighters enter the battle, but the leader of the enemies set fire to the entire academy. Sid finds him in the library, and Rosalind Barnett turns out to be the leader. He is explained by the fact that he achieved the art of swordsmanship. Rosalind killed Sherry's mother because she kept the same artifact. After the dialogue, they got into a fight. Rosalind connected two artifacts and got tremendous speed, but even in this guise, he cannot damage Sid. Rosalind is dying, but Sherry was there. She rushes to him, and Sid believes that she would rather live in ignorance than find out who her father was. In the morning, he says goodbye to Sherry. She goes abroad. There she's going to gain the knowledge she lacks. After the incident, all the students were sent on vacation. Alexia came to Gamma's Mall with Iris to do some pre-trip shopping. She travels to the sacred lands for a divine test. There she will be able to learn more about the cult of the devil. There they are met by Gamma herself and show off her range of amazing merchandise. Sid also goes there and Rose was with him. After an incident at school, she fell in love with him and now follows him on his heels. Sid tries to ignore her, but Rose is even more attracted to him. Upon arrival, Sid meets Beta. She ran a bookstore. She gave him a book in which the plan was written. There in the evening, he meets Epsilon, also a member of the Shadow Garden organization. She reports about some executioner. In the sauna, Sid meets Alexia by chance. She talks about the divine test and wants him to participate too. The new Archbishop, Jack Nelson, does not give Alexia permission to conduct research on the cult. Instead, it says to enjoy her test. Already at the event, she intersects with Epsilon. They quarrel a little, but the event begins. Sid, sitting there, really wants to give a damn about the rules and break into the field. Each fighter in the arena would be summoned by a demon comparable to the strength of the fighter. But Sid's application was nevertheless accepted and his name was heard. He realized that it was better to make a commotion than to fight at full strength. He enters the arena in the guise of the Lord of Shadows, and therefore the strongest witch, Aurora, arrived to him. There are terrible rumors about her. Their battle was long, but the victory was for the Lord. The witch vanished and Sid vanished into the air. After the battle, a huge runic door appeared in the arena. All visitors were evacuated and 7 shadows appeared behind the Archbishop. They were going to take him to the door with them. But the executioner Venom tried to stop them. He wounded one that was cut into pieces immediately afterwards. Together, the shadows jumped through the door, followed by Alexia and Rosa. They arrived at the place where the legendary hero Olivia had once cut off the hand of the demon Diablos. Here Alpha opens the door and Olivia herself appears next to her. Passing into the ruins of the laboratory, they learn that Aurora turned out due to the fusion of her cells with Diablos himself. Jack Nelson turned out to be one of the cult's scientists. They invented pills that grant immortality. He tried to break free, but Delta kicked him down the lab. But after a moment, Jack flew to them, but in a demonic guise.